On this day, July 25, 1909, French aviator Louis became the first person to fly across the English Channel in a heavier-than-air aircraft. In the early days of aviation, there were two main categories of aircraft: balloons and heavier-than-air machines. Balloons were mostly used for military observation and were not really suitable for long-distance flights, because they were at the mercy of the wind and had no real means of propulsion. The first heavier-than-air machine to make a long-distance flight was the Wright Flyer, which flew from Dayton, Ohio to the coast of North Carolina in 1909, but this was before anyone had flown across the English Channel. The idea of flying across the Channel had been suggested as early as 1875 by Henry de, who proposed a race from Paris to London. In 1907, a British aviator named John Alcock made the first solo flight across the Channel in a heavier-than-air plane. However, he had to make a stop halfway across the Channel for fuel, which meant that he was not the first person to complete a non-stop flight. That distinction went to Louis Blériot. Blériot's flight was a much more perilous journey. He took off from a small farm field near Calais, France at 6:30 a.m. and flew to Dover, England, arriving at 7:45 a.m. His plane was a Blériot XI, a small biplane with a 50-horsepower engine. It was covered with fabric and had a wingspan of 11 meters. Blériot had made several attempts to cross the Channel, but bad weather had forced him to turn back. But on this day, the weather was perfect, and Blériot was able to make his historic flight. The crossing took him about 37 minutes, and he flew at an altitude of about 500 feet. The Daily Mail reported that the Blériot flew like a bird, occasionally dipping its wings as if in salute to the crowd. He was greeted as a hero when he landed and was awarded the Louis Mirth Prize of 1,000 francs for making the first flight across the Channel. In 1927, Charles Lindbergh would become the first person to fly solo and non-stop across the Atlantic Ocean. And in 1937, Howard Hughes would set a new record by flying around the world in just over 100 hours. But those were feats of long-distance endurance. Louis Blériot's flight across the English Channel was the first step in conquering the great distances of the air. This has been a History Hot Tip. If you would like to know more about aviation history, check out my channel.